Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to our board meeting. We appreciate your attendance this evening in person and online. At this time, we have with us Pastor Michael Mathis from Mission Field Ministries to lead us in our invocation, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. If you will, all please rise.
Once again, in Jesus' name, Almighty God, we thank you for your presence here this evening with us. And we're so grateful, God, for your sovereignty and your involvement in governmental affairs. Oh Lord, we ask that wherever we have erred or sinned against you, we ask, Lord, that you would forgive us now. We thank you for your loving kindness and your mercy that you continue to show toward each and every one of us and this nation. We thank you for America. We're grateful, God, for the leadership here with Mayor Jackie Warner, and we ask, Lord, that you'll continue to protect her and her family. Not only her, Lord, but her entire team. Oh, Lord, we thank you for their contributions and how they are causing the town of Hope Mills to prosper. Oh, Lord, we thank you so much, and we ask, God, that you'll continue to shield and protect them as you guide them. And, Lord, we're always so very grateful for our first responders, Lord, who voluntarily put their lives in harm's way for the citizens of Hope Mill and the state of North Carolina. We thank you for them, and we ask that you would continue to have your guardian angels at their back. So many evil things happening in the world today, Lord, and we're grateful for our first responders, and we thank you for them. Keep them safe as well as their families. And now, Lord, the agenda has been set. But we'll never forget, God, that there's man's wisdom and there's God's wisdom. And I pray, God, that you would continue to endow this board with your wisdom, that they might execute the things on this agenda that will work for the betterment of the town of Hope Mills. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. At this time, do we have any additions or deletions of our agenda?
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
I would like to see items C and D move to new business. Correct.
Okay. Item C and D from our consent agenda to be moved to our new business. Are there any other additions or deletions to our agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve our agenda with those changes?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. At this time, we will have official comments, and this evening I'll start with Commissioner Marley.
Mayor, I have nothing at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Scarola.
Thank you all for being here. It's great to see everyone's friendly faces. For those who did not know, Mayor Pro Tem Dr. McCray was recognized for Juneteenth yesterday. Was it yesterday?
Yes.
Yes, it was yesterday. My days are blending together, so it was an awesome Juneteenth celebration.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Commissioner Scarola, for coming out to support yesterday. And the county did a wonderful job celebrating Juneteenth throughout the entire weekend. And I don't think I have any other additional comments. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Legg.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I look forward to working with each and every one of you up here and those out there that we need to work with. That's all.
Okay. Commissioner Mitchell.
I want to just thank everyone for coming out this evening. And those of you who wish you all a belated Happy Father's Day. Hope you had one that was enjoyable. Thank you.
And again, just reiterating everything that everyone has said, and I'd also like to thank Pastor Mathis for being back with us this evening. It's been a while since he's been here, and again, we appreciate everyone else's attendance. At this time, we have presentations, and the first presentation I have is a proclamation that I will read at this time. Whereas Parks and Recreation programs are an integral part of the communities throughout the country, including the town of Hope Mills. Whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks. Whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. Whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. Whereas Parks and Recreation programming and education activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to childhood development. Whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environment well-being of our community. Whereas our Parks and Recreation and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas Hope Mills recognize the benefits derived from Parks and Recreation. Now therefore be it resolved by the Hope Mills Board of Commissioners that July is recognized as Park and Recreation Month in the town of Hope Mills. Next we have Public Safety Building Project Update, and that's presented by Scott Garner, our architect.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm glad to be here with you to give you an update on the building next door. We have a lot of things to talk about tonight, so I'll get started. Construction is moving along very well. The problem we've had has been heat. Today was a nice day, but we've had some heat that is really kind of pretty tough on the guys out working on the site. So we just need to be mindful of that. But we are making good progress. The chipboard inside is 98% finished, painting about 40%. The acoustical tile grid is up about 98%. Porcelain tile, ceramic tile about 80%. Plumbing is about 90%. The thing left to do is set the fixtures. The mechanical is 80%. And the electrician is about 75%. The electrician will probably be the last subcontractor to finish his work. We are on schedule. We expect the building to be ready to be occupied in October. So things are moving right along. After that, we'll move into phase 3, which will be to demolish the fire station and build the new concrete apron out in front of the new fire station and the parking lot to the rear. And that will take 2 or 3 months. So that will be phase 3. But tonight we'll talk about change order 8. But before we do that, I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about how we got where we are and what we have left to do. Don't be fooled. There's still quite a bit of work left to be done. So we're not finished yet. But let me talk about the design process that we went through to get where we are and help you understand that. Our goal in building this building was to build a police and fire station to serve the town of Hope Mills for the next 40 or 50 years. And what I'm trying to say to you is that this is a long-term building, and we need to do long-term thinking about it as we go through this process. Designing and building a building is a very complex process. That is a complicated building. It has a lot of things in it, it required quite an effort to get to where we are. Construction law is a little bit different than other laws. Building a building is different from anything else that you do. There are different laws, there are a lot of regulations, there are a lot of agencies looking over it, so it's a very involved process. As we went through this, there were about 15 of the staff members from the town that participated in the process. It took us about 2 years to design this building. So I want you to just know it's a long process. We had numerous meetings. We came and reported to town council several times. We presented each phase, the design phase, design development phase, construction documents. We took bids, but there's a lot of reviews in it. So it's important to know, to see how involved this process is. And I want you to understand that. Also, the departments that we're designing for, the police department and the fire department, are very specialized. They have very specialized needs, they have specialized equipment, and they are unique building types. Although every fire department has kind of similar equipment, they all operate differently. Would you agree with that, Mr. Marley? They have their own way of operating, and so do police departments. And what we have to do is we have to understand how each department operates so we can fit their operation. When they have response calls, seconds count. We need to get them out the door quickly, and seconds count. So we have to be very efficient in our design. In addition to that, I've done about 60 fire stations, and I can tell you, they're all different. And I haven't done that many police stations. I've done a few police stations, but they are all different. And so we have to look at it, and we got to fit them. We got to make them responsive, or as responsive as we can. In addition, this particular project is located on an existing site. Well, that brings on a lot of problems. We don't know what's underground. We don't know what's been there before. It's much easier to go and build on a new site that's not been previously built on than it is an existing site. So that makes it a little bit more complicated. Another thing was that the existing fire station has to remain in place and in operation while we're building a new building. So that means it's part of the site that we can't use. It shaped the building to be an L-shaped building instead of a straight building. The other thing that shaped the building was the fire chief felt very strongly that the fire department should face Gulfview Road instead of Rockfish. And he thought that because most of the calls when he goes downtown, he goes out Gulfview. And if he went on to Rockfish, he would go on Rockfish, go up to the intersection, turn right on Gulfview. So he could save a few seconds if we could face onto Gulfview. So that's why we have an L-shaped building. There was one unknown wrinkle that nobody knew about, and that is that the library sewer is running across our property. It was not recorded. It's not shown on a survey. And so that was a surprise. But we have those things. We have to deal with them. What I'm saying is, this is a long-term project. We're thinking about this building for the next 40 years, and we're going through a very complicated process to get there. And we did, after we went through the design process, we did what we call construction documents. Construction documents or contract documents. They are the blueprints. People call them blueprints. They're not blue anymore. But we did the drawings. There were 137 sheets of drawings. There were about 20 to 25 architects and engineers that put these together. So assembling these drawings in itself was a task, and it required a lot of coordination. But that's what we do, and we're required to operate at a high level. These drawings are used to price the building, and then they're used to build the building. And therefore, they are part of your contract. They are part of your contract with the contractor. He is obligated legally to to do what is on those drawings. And so part of my job is to see that he does it. I would say to you, in putting this together, we're human. We've got 25 people putting these drawings together. We're not perfect. We do a good job, but we're not perfect. So what we have learned over the years is that when we build a building like this, of this complexity and this size, that we have to have a contingency. We have to have some room, some latitude for adjustment. There are things that are unforeseen. There are coordination issues. There are lots of things that come up. Code changes, products change, but we have to have a little bit of latitude. Cities that build buildings all the time in the state of North Carolina, they build a contingency into their contract, and so have we. The contingency that we build in is 5% of the construction amount. The construction amount is $11.5 million, so you can see we're talking about a sizable amount of money. Now, we have not used that amount of money, but we've used some of it. But the contingency is not a blank check. It is not a blank check. To use it, we have to have approvals, we have to screen, we have to review the work to be sure that it's necessary, to make sure that it's not covered, and to guard the money. But we keep a close eye on the money. But it is a part of the contract. It's a part of the contract between the owner and the architect that the town will have a contingency, and we do, and we have budgeted for it. Now, all that to say is that as we go through this process, change orders are something that you don't like, I don't like them, but they are a necessary part of the process. They are necessary to take care of things that fall by the wayside. But the law says if we add work, the contractor has to be paid. If we delete work, the owner gets credit. And we look at that very carefully to make sure that that's followed. It has to be a fair situation. It has to be fair to you, the owner, and it has to be fair to the contractor. So typically what happens is change orders originate by the contractor. I screen them very carefully. I look to see if they're covered in the documents. I look to see if we have to have them. And then they're also evaluated by the engineers. They're reviewed by the city staff. And then, only then, do they come to you. But there are a number of them that never get to you because they're rejected much sooner. Now, where we are today is we started out with a bid of $11,460,000, and we have approved change orders in the amount of $411,650. So that's a fair amount. But you must know that most of these items are upgrades and additions requested by the owner. Very few of them are really legitimate change order items. They are additions for the owner. The contingency is not for additions. It is for coordination and for unforeseen items. So actually, the amount that's been spent on coordination items is like about $20,000, which is a very small amount for a contract this size. Now, as we finish this project, I suspect that there will be some items that require coordination going down the road. They will be scrutinized, they will be carefully evaluated, and then if they are worthwhile, they will be brought to you for approval. Now, the one big item is that we know that you approved a study to do the parking lot to the Rio Town Hall and Parks and Rec. That will be a large one. I'm sure there will be some others. I don't know what they will be right now, but I'm sure there will be some. Now, tonight, we're here to talk about change order 8. Change order 8 involves 3 items for your approval. I received 8 items, and you're seeing 3 of them. Four of the others were rejected because they were not worthwhile. They were not legitimate change requests, and so they were rejected. You won't see those. One of them, we're asking for more information, and possibly that may come back, or possibly it may go away. But tonight, the first item that we're asking for is the VDA system. The VDA system is for internal communications with radios and cell phones inside the building. We knew that we would have to do that, and in the contract documents, we called for the contractor to have tests made to see how it would work. There is not a computer program that makes that predictable from the drawings. So you have to wait until you get the building partially constructed in order to test it. The contractor, under the contractor hires a specialty firm to do that testing. And then once they get those test results, remediation is designed to correct it. This is a necessary thing. It is life safety. It's something that we need to do. The fire marshal has been very active in this process, in watching what they're doing, in monitoring the test, and in looking at what the correction will be. The cost for the VDA system correction is $66,102. That's a sizable amount of money, but it is less than the engineer had estimated that it would be. So that's an item for your approval tonight. The second item involves WAP, or this is IT equipment. The IT company that works for this town will furnish most of the technology equipment going in the building. And so they furnish it. The contractor was to install it, but in reviewing it, the IT people said they would prefer to install it themselves. So the contractor is offering us a credit of $879 for making those connections. And I would recommend approval of that. The third item is for removal of the modular building that was on the rear of the site, which was part of the police department. The contract documents say that the town was to remove that building. The thought was that we may or may not remove it, that it could stay and it may be used as an auxiliary office space. Ultimately, that was decided not to do that, and that the building needed to be removed. And so we had offers of people who would take it, but none of them came through. And so we have to get the contractor to remove it, and the cost for that is $9,775. Now, so tonight, we're asking for approval for change order 8, and the amount is $74,998. And I would ask for your approval on that. Do we have questions, comments?
At this time, do we have questions from any board member?
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner Scarola?
so I have a question about the removal of the modular trailer. So that's the actual contractors removing it. Is that what you're
The
saying?
contractor is removing it. It was in the contract documents for the town to remove it because we didn't know if we would remove it or not.
Okay.
Yeah. Madam Mayor?
Sure.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard you say that you offered to leave it there, right? The offer was made to leave it there in place, not move it?
The town thought they may want to keep it. They decided they would not. There was not. I think we went into it and looked at it and found out that the interior was not really suitable. It did not have toilet facilities. There were a lot of things about it it did not have.
So,
It was substandard.
all right. So we will have no foreseeable need for that building for storage or whatsoever, anything of that nature, because in the past we have paid for storage space, and I don't know if that's a repurposed use of the building. I don't know if it can be used for that purpose, but while I'm sitting up here, I don't want to see us come back saying, well, we need to go rent some space, especially if we can save that building and use it for future purpose.
I would defer to the manager to address that.
Sure, so like on these things, when they come to you, they've gone through the engineer.
Mm-hmm.
In case you didn't notice, the building's gone. So we're not asking for a decision on this, we're asking for approval of the change order.
What the
So
hell?
under legal contract, that's why we have contingency. I mean, like, if you say no, I guess, how
What-
do we act on that? Because it took 2 months to get to this stage.
When was it removed?
I believe they took the end of it out last week. So
Hmm.
it took about a week or so to tear it down. And
So,
Surplus did about 2 months ago. So this was ordered discussed prior. And it's been surplus, being gotten rid of, that was approved.
And the council got a surplus resolution on this.
Well, I
2
just
months ago, approved that.
it was on the consent agenda?
We had hoped that the contractor had somebody that was gonna take it for free, and both of the people lined up to do that did not.
Let me make me another note. I won't do that again.
So, this goes kind of to both of you. So, correct me if I'm wrong now, we approved it to be put as surplus, but now we're paying for it. Ultimately, we could have put it up for auction and probably sold it to get rid of it. So now we're,
The building official went through it, we really didn't have a need, we may have additional capacity for space here. That building needed everything done, it's not suitable, it's flooded during a hurricane, it's not suitable for office space. You could probably stick stuff in it, it leaks, it's unsightly with the new campus construction and all the landscaping requirements. It didn't make sense, it doesn't make sense to have an unsightly old building sitting there for a storage purpose. We couldn't repurpose it without investing a lot of money. So the utility access is being put in because in the future, we would, if we need additional space, we'll go out and buy a new unit to put out there at some future date, which would be more cost effective than remedying the old beat up.
but that's not what I'm asking. So ultimately, we voted to have it as surplus and we got rid of it. But now we're paying for after the fact, when ultimately, we could have just said, put out an advertisement or something, the same way we got rid of the museum. Hey, does anybody want this building? And we could have probably got for free. Now we're paying for this after the fact.
So the contractor did have numerous people that were interested in taking it away for free. All of those fell through.
Okay, but didn't mean to throw that at you. It wouldn't-
Utilities on the site.
Say again?
It needed to be removed to do the site work. They're doing the trash locations and all of the groundwork.
It went in
So
your.
it needed, it's a timing and coordination issue, not just can we keep everything. So yeah, our contract says that the town is responsible for anything to do with that. That's not part of the agreement that we have. Hence why we brought it to you for consideration. Town surplused it. We take action to get it out. It's actually, that price is extremely cheap for hauling that to the landfill. And Scott reviews that and we had staff
It
meetings.
was
about
a time issue that, we tried, the effort was made to give it away, and 2 people said they would take it, they didn't show up, and it became a time crunch.
Okay.
Yes, one other thing, I will say this. Once the building did not make it as a sale of surplus, what should have happened, we came back to us and let us know that there was no surplus sale, and now we recommend that the building be demolished. I mean, now we would have avoided we would have avoided this conversation at that time had it been
I
done.
can appreciate that. I can appreciate what you're saying. It was, we were in a time crunch with the contractor.
Mm.
Schedule, construction schedule.
We're always in a time crunch. Tweeze it. All right, I'm good. I'm done.
Madam Mayor, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, Commissioner Legg.
I saw him pulling the air conditioner off the end of that thing last week. $411,650 we've used of contingency?
I'm sorry?
Didn't you say $411,650 contingency money?
No, that's the amount of change orders that have been approved. That is not contingency money. That's money that was available because we got a super price on this building. If we price this building today, like they're saying, it cost you $2 to $3 million more than the price you're paying for it. But having that good bid price allowed us to do some upgrades, which were approved by council, on the building, which will make it much more efficient in terms of maintenance and things like that. But all of those changes were approved by council.
I'm not understanding some of that. Because being a retired contractor myself, I'm used to a turnkey job, and we're not getting that. We might be getting it, but it's costing us $411,000 plus, possibly, over the price of the contract on the building. I don't like to see these numbers keep coming back to be added on to the total cost. It just seems like it's not fair to our taxpayers that we have to repay all this money that we're having to borrow to pay for this stuff. I don't know, I'm just tired of that contingency money and change orders and all that. Why can't we just bid a job, do the job, and get the heck out of Dodge?
Mr. Mayor, this project is much more complicated than a big box.
Sir, talking to the
Gotta
mic.
get the microphone.
This project is much more complex than a regular building project. There are a lot of people involved. It's very specialized. It's unique, and it is not a turnkey job. We know that the contract is set up because it is not a turnkey job. The contract is set up with a contingency because we know experience has shown that these things are going to happen. And in the state of North Carolina, the standard is to have 5% contingency on a project like this. Now, we have spent very little on changes due to coordination or unforeseen circumstances. The big money that has been spent have been add-ons or additions as requested by the owner, not by the contractor. And so, but we cannot I've done this a long time. I've done this a very long time. You cannot do a project like that without some latitude. You cannot. I mean, I wish that we could. I don't like change orders any more than you do. And the thing I don't like worse than that is I don't like explaining them to you. But, it's just part of the process. They are a necessary part of the process for a building of this type. And we will face some others before we finish this building. We will face some others. Hopefully not much, but and I will scrutinize them very carefully. But they are a part of the process. The courts have held that we have to have a contingency. That's part of the contract. The courts have held that. It's not a question of only this project, but projects of this type require that.
I know we no more signed the contract on the building and we had to pay a bunch of money to have more trees removed because you didn't get enough room to get your equipment around. Why didn't we do that at one time? Eat all that stuff at one time. I'm not understanding how it can be overlooked. I'm done, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry.
Those trees, Mr. Legg, those trees were not shown on the survey. Those trees were not shown on the survey. We had a survey of this site, and they were supposed to show every tree and every physical item on this site. They did not show those trees. And so when the contractor had to remove them, that was additional work, and he had to be paid for it, and that's unfortunate.
But the trees were sitting there. Somebody could see them sitting there while they didn't say, oh, wait a minute, there's 12 more trees that's got to go. That's not enough trees taken out.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
I'm done.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Scrolla?
I have a question to kind of lead off what Commissioner Legg was saying. So who was responsible for the site survey to show the trees?
The owner is responsible for the survey.
So it was
It-
our
it-
failure.
The owner is responsible for the survey, and the contract says we may rely on the survey for accurate information about the site.
Madam Mayor, one thing.
I mean, because, you can look at a survey, you got 3-4 acres out here, there might be things on there that we don't see, but we can rely on that survey. That's what the contract says.
So for clarification purpose then, we are the generators of a large percentage of the change orders, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, because where I come from, most of the change orders came from the contractor in the world that I worked in at one time. So, thank you.
Very few of the change orders that we have done today have originated by the contractor. Most of them have been additions to the contract that we did. Is that fair to say, Scott?
We've done a lot of things like paving the back lot,
All right, I got, yeah.
flooring.
That's us.
They're all explained. We don't, some of these things we're just now seeing are difficult because we're installing cabinetry and some of the stuff doesn't mesh perfectly.
Right.
We've got 3 different contractors coordinating. The stuff we're seeing, the code requirements, you get to this point where some of the decision factors have to be decided, because if we don't make those decisions and wait to bring them before council, it puts things on delay, and then we're looking at timing and delaying a month, and those things, with the damages end up costing us either way, so it's, if we try to hold everything back and make sure all the decisions are made, we try to do them through we hire Scott.
Right.
Scott doesn't represent the builder. He's
No,
our
I'm working for you.
All right,
I'm
no,
working
got
for
that.
you.
One other question. The BDA system, is the same system that we talked about at the previous meeting? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I just have
Yes,
one more
all right.
question. Now, is there anything, it would have to probably be like lesson learned kind of thing. For this modular trailer, the fact that we're paying for it after the fact, is there anything we can do to avoid this from happening again? Can it, instead, if it's going to surplus and we're paying to have it removed, can it come back to the town so we can try to get rid of it by different means?
So our building official, we can't use it for our purposes, so someone else that would take it, my understanding was the contractor had their employee found several people that would like haul it off to some backwoods location and use it for storage. I don't know if that's, like, if this ended up in the town minutes somewhere, it would probably be a code problem. It's not necessarily, we're responsible for removal, because it fell through, they had a plan, they had several people lined up, they didn't come and deliver on that, so to me, it's cost effective for us to do it with our trucks and equipment. It would cost us more than $9,000.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like notification the next time, because what you've done now is it's not really a surplus and we have to approve it. So it's not a request, it's like a demand. So I think we could have been notified by in an email along with that reference of the surplus of what happened, instead of just saying you all approved it, because there's other context around here. So it would have been nice to get some explanation about the time crunch that you all were experiencing. It will be coming before the board for transparency. But tonight, we have to do it. It's not a request. It's pretty much a demand at this point. That's all I have to say, Madam
Okay.
Mayor.
Commissioner Marley, do you have anything to offer?
I can very much respect what you say.
No, I understand it pretty good, because I'm going through the same thing in the jurisdiction that I work for with the new construction. And I will say that I don't know if it'll ease everybody's mind a little bit on the $66,000 for the BDA system, but it is a code requirement in the code, in the fire code, And the building does have to be at substantial completion before you can do the test and get accurate readings, so you'll know what you have to do. And that's a big reason why it's coming as a change order, because you can't budget for this until you get to the point we're at now. And so it is needed, and if we don't approve this, then you won't get a CO for the building. So, I mean, it's a code requirement, it's necessary, and I understand everything.
It's a life safety item, really.
Yeah, so,
The engineer's estimate was closer to 100,000,
yeah.
so we're trying to get
Is there any other comments or questions that we have? If not, do we have an action?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve budget amendment number,
Change order A.
or change order 8. Sorry, I said budget amendment, but make a motion we approve change order number 8.
Okay, I have a motion to have a second.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? It's 4-1. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And we are on budget and we're on time. So we'll get through this and we're gonna have a fine building.
Thank you, sir. All right, the next item on our agenda are public hearings. The first public hearing is for Annexation A 2022-05. It's a contiguous annexation of 46.22 acres located at 3680 Elk Road. And I'll turn it over to Mr. McLaughlin.
Hello, Madam Mayor. There's no presentation for this, but as you are aware, this is the public hearing, which is the final step in the annexation process. To consider annexation of such a property, what you should have in your packets are, you should have a memo from the plan review staff outlining recommendation of approval, and you should have a separate memo from planning and zoning outlining recommendation of approval, but also with a request to begin the initial zoning process of R6. R6 is the compatible zoning classification needed to facilitate the multifamily development. Staff and planner review staff have met very extensively with the developer and his team, and we have the request before you this evening. I'll open the floor to any questions that you may have.
Okay, do you have any questions for Mr. McLaughlin before we open public hearing?
Motion to open public hearing.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this annexation, if you'd come to the microphone at this time. If you'd give your name and address, sir, that would be what we need.
Sure. Jonathan Charleston, 201 Hay Street, Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm here on behalf of the property owner and the developer, and respectfully asking that the 46.22 acres on Elk Road be considered for annexation by the town of Hope Mills. As your developer professional has indicated in the paperwork, the developer proposed to develop 388 multifamily residential units on the site, which will be served by PwC water and sewer. All of the development standards of the town have been met and complied with, and we would respectfully request that the Board of Commissioners give this request your favorable consideration. Of course, I'm available to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you, sir. At this time, is there anyone here that would like to speak against this annexation? Is there-
Motion to close the public
Have a
hearing.
motion to close public hearing. At this time, I'll turn it back over to Mr. McLaughlin. Anybody have any questions for Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes,
Not,
ma'am.
do we have action?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Is there going to be commercial business in this area as well?
No, this project is for the facilitation of a multifamily. It's basically apartments, but there's no commercial component proposed for this particular proposal.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. McLaughlin?
Make the motion.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make the motion to approve annexation A 2022-05 and authorize staff to begin the initial zoning process to designate the development under the R6 district.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for coming this evening. All right, next we have case ZNG-005-22, initial zoning of 52.94 plus or minus acres to R7.5 residential and C1P planned local business, or to a more restrictive zoning district located on the south side of Service Road 1003 or Camden Road, west of intersection with Service Road 3039, Whippoorwill Drive, and submitted by Stephen G. Terry on behalf of Barbara M. Johnson Ayers and Trey Livick on behalf of McKim and Creed. And I'll turn it over to Mr. McLaughlin.
As indicated by the mayor, this is an initial zoning request. It's tied to the recent annexation of the subject property by the board. It was recommended for approval by planning board on May 17th. What you have here, again, as stated, it's a 52.94 acre tract. It's on the south side of Camden, annexed into the town on March 21st. They're requesting, if you look at this map I'll show you, there's a smaller corner that they're requesting the C1P, and the developer is basically saying they want to facilitate something like a small gas station convenience store that's going to benefit the neighborhood right there on that corner. They're connecting to the Valley Inn 2 subdivision. If you recall, at the last public meeting, there was a resident that actually brought up the Applegate Road issue, and we worked extensively with the developer to make the connection to Brettonwood, which basically gives you a centralized entrance off of Camden that would possibly alleviate that situation. It's a proposed 134 lot subdivision. The subdivision that would come ultimately after successful, if you guys recommend approval tonight, he has filed it, but it'll be on the agenda for July 18th for, that's when you'll see the actual site plan layout and things of that nature. The Southwest Land Use Plan calls for low density residential at this location. So when I say that it's partially compliant, that small little commercial piece is the part that we're talking about. This is a view of the existing zoning. If you look at the top corner on the left, where that little blue square is, that's the piece that we're talking about.
Hold on for
This,
a minute, Chance. Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
Seems like I remember some time back that they brought that one piece that they've cut out for commercial. They were wanting to put a gas station there before, and this room was packed out with residents from that neighborhood over there, and the board denied that at that time approval for that to be commercial, to put a gas station there on the corner, and now it's come back to us here with that piece included in there to get approved at one time. And I'd like to have some clarification on that.
I would as well, because I'm not aware of this area of
I believe Mr. Evans, I'm not sure of his first name. I believe his last name is Evans, came that night to the board and proposed, but this room was standing room only with residents from that neighborhood.
Camden
That-
Estates and Camden Woods.
I
Okay.
think it
No.
was the corner of Waldo Beach Road, what you're referring to, if my memory serves me correctly.
It's been a while. I think it was the previous board before this one. It's probably been couple years
I
ago.
would have to push back a little bit. I've been employed here 8 years since April. This is the first time we've looked at this property since I've been here. Now, I'm not aware of this area even looked at all. This was the area that was pretty much Johnson Ayers property that sat for years undeveloped. And from my understanding, and I could be wrong if this happened much, a lot longer than I've been here, but since 2014, that property has been vacant, and I'm not aware of any attempt to rezone or do anything with this particular property. I think if Mr. Legg is talking about something on Waldo's Beach, that's further down to the west.
It was very, I mean, it was very contested when you know, by the neighborhood over there that when it came
Because I guess
before.
what I'm saying too is, this is vacant land with no street in it.
Madam Mayor.
So I'm not sure
Yeah,
how
that-
someone would
that-
have actually.
Yeah, that, the property was in that general vicinity, and there wasn't a street to it, and it was left vacant because of anticipation of it being commercial at some point in time, but the neighborhood that it's connected to, which all this kind of connects together back there, they came and were very upset because of, they didn't want that kind of development next to their two neighborhoods. And that was, I don't know the exact year.
I don't know the exact year or date, but I remember it because this room was full.
I'm just wondering how many people paid attention to that, because normally what happened is with anything, like when the big apartments that were approved there at King's Quarters,
Yeah.
this room was full because of the communities, those two neighborhoods get very involved, and I don't see anybody here tonight from either of those neighborhoods, so I'm just curious if the way this was presented, if it didn't trigger them because they just it was on down the road where the sign
I
was.
understand that.
Yeah,
Madam-
I
I
don't know.
understand.
Madam Mayor, may I say something?
Okay.
Yes, you.
Now, did y'all go through the normal process that you always go
Yes,
through
we
to
did.
notify everybody
Yes, we did.
that should be,
Yes, we did. Now, you
to
have
let them know the
realize-
coming that's going to be going on?
Yes, we did.
If they was notified, they didn't show up. What's the problem?
Well,
Because you have to
there's no
realize,
problem.
if I go back to the site,
I
this
don't
was
get it.
annexed in March. So we've been talking to this
Yes.
developer since probably October of last year. And again, I hit my 8-year mark in April. I have never seen a project submitted, considered, or even talked about for this particular portion. And what I want to point out too, for the small corner, we're talking about a 52-acre piece, and we're talking about a 0.73 portion of it that they're talking about commercial. So we're not talking about a large piece. When you see the design, the entrance is in this area, and what he's trying to facilitate is a small little commercial piece that is beneficial to the neighborhood they're developing. So when we're talking about this, I'd say 98.9% of the entire development is residential. So if there was a concern of that small piece, since March and up through planning board unanimous recommendation in May, it has never been brought to my attention. We've actually posted 2 zoning signs on the property since the beginning of May, with the packet that you see here outlined. If you recall, we have our new zoning signs that have QR codes on them.
Right.
So it's a new technology that you can point your phone at the sign and pull up the packet that you see here. So it hasn't been brought to my attention. I'm not disputing what you're saying. I'm just saying that if there was a project similar to this in this vicinity, it hasn't been since I've been here.
Madam Mayor.
In terms
Yes,
of this
sir.
particular piece.
Isn't this also the property that you briefly mentioned when that resident was in here,
Yes.
and it will resolve his problem once this development's put in place?
Yes, if you recall, the Valley Inn 2 development, which is here, and the Valley Inn 1 development existing, the only way to get through those properties are 2 pieces: Applegate and Beaver Circle. And so with that said, that was one of the main reasons why we pressed a little bit for that developer to make this connection. And so that's what I mean when I say we've had some very extensive pieces, but I would say that commercial piece is not something that I would consider to be a significant part of the development. It's a 134 lot subdivision over 52 acres, and that portion is just a 0.73 acre piece. But I wasn't aware of there being a contentious piece, because if you recall, we just annexed in 82 acres. We have an initial zoning coming back next month for 82 acres across the street that's gonna be mixed use. That's gonna have 60 acres of commercial and 20 acres of residential.
Yeah, I understand. I'm good. I just, it just struck me when I looked at it that we had a small piece that came to us, and they talked about future development for residential that would be behind it, and it was just, and then when I seen this and looked at it, and then that one little piece of commercial there, it just, so I'm good. I'm sorry I interrupted. Yeah.
Go ahead.
based on, this is the existing zoning here. This is your location of water and sewer. They've also had extensive conversation with PwC. And ultimately, the project across the street is gonna also feed into the water and sewer availability for this project. This is your Southwest land use plan. It clearly shows low density residential, but the portion I'm talking about is that commercial piece is what I said, it is partially compliant. And here are your site photographs. This is on Camden. The subject property is basically to the bottom left corner of the screen, and you're looking at a view across the street from the subject property. This is a direct view of the subject property. If you look in that corner on the left side of the screen, that is one of the houses in the Valley Inn existing subdivision. And this is another view across the street from the subject property. And now I have your recommendation from staff as recommended by the Cumberland County Joint Planning Board on May 2nd.
Okay, do we have any other questions for
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
McLaughlin? Yes, go ahead.
It's the house that's sitting back in the back of that lot partial. Is that house gonna be destroyed or is it gonna remain there?
If you're talking about,
The one Miss Johnson's grandson lived in. His wife
now,
lived in.
there's
now.
a small dirt road just beside this that is a house towards the back. If that's what you're talking about, that property is not included in this particular development.
Okay.
It's just beside this piece of property, so that house will not be touched.
Any other questions?
Madam Mayor, I talked with the gentleman that's presenting this tonight a while ago, and he assured me that there's gonna be another entrance up there, and that would take a load off of Deaver and Honeycutt, or Deaver and Applegate. The problem we're having, once the developers get finished, they're not repairing the roads. They're leaving them in despair. So I would like for them, if this is approved, to make sure that those roads are put back to their better condition instead of the worst condition. I don't know that we can control that, but I guess we can ask them. They're here, but
Before that, they have to meet
Yeah,
the town standard.
And I know Applegate and Deaver Circle are completely,
Yeah.
those are anomalies, but just to bring it to your attention, I think at the last board meeting, it was on consent agenda for the acceptance of the streets in Valley Inn too, which are the streets these are connected to. So there's a lot of work that our public works staff, they do behind the scenes, and that we're always holding plans where it's not that popular of an action, but one mechanism that we do have for existing subdivisions that are building new streets. They get up to 70, we call it 75% rule in our zoning. If they get up to 75% completion of an existing phase, we can stop them from going to the next phase if they don't start street acceptance. So we're talking about this new subdivision connecting Brettonwood, and we know that we just accepted that section of streets into the town. That is your machine working to the town's benefit, but we all know Applegate and Deaver Circle are unique pieces that are a little bit more challenging.
Okay. Do we have a motion at this time to open public hearing?
Motion open public hearing.
At this time, do we have anyone in attendance would like to speak in favor of this annexation? Anyone here to speak opposed?
Motion to close.
Motion to close at this time. Any other questions for Mr. McLaughlin? Do we have a motion or do we have action?
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Okay,
In case ZNG-005-22, the Hunt Mills Board of Commissioners recommends approval of the initial zoning request to R7.5 residential and C1P planned local business and finds A, the approval is an amendment to the adopted Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan 2013 map for the C1P area, and that the Board of Commissioners should not require any additional request or application for amendment to said map for this request. B, the following change in conditions was considered in amending the zoning ordinance zoning map to meet the development needs of the community. The C1P portion of the request is less than an acre of the overall development, will provide for the development of convenient goods and services at the lightest commercial level, and is positioned with access to a heavily trafficked I can't even read, road at the forefront of the proposed area. C, and this rezoning approval is reasonable and in the public interest because the site has access to public utilities, will allow a density and harmony with existing surrounding zoning, and will be in line with existing surrounding uses.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is public comments, and we did not have anyone sign up for public comments.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Jane, is it working? Because the live feed, it's showing it's not coming up on YouTube. No? Okay.
No problem.
Okay.
Y'all get phone calls.
Okay. All right, next on our consent agenda, we have moved items C and D. We have those items that are remaining. To have a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing
Oh,
none,
I'm sorry.
seeing none opposed. Okay, next item on our agenda is old business. Consideration to authorize the town manager to negotiate and execute a contract with Chavis and Sons Masonry Incorporated for concrete paving at the municipal park outdoor basketball courts. And I will, turn it over to, and Mr. Morrison, while you're up here, I am remiss. I want to tell you how much, not only do we appreciate our Parks and Rec department, but we thankful that it's going to be a special month for Parks and Rec. But I do want you to have this certificate and know that you do an outstanding job, and we appreciate everything that Parks and Rec does for Hope Mills. And I do believe since you're here, we need to give you that public recognition.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Great job.
You don't get no money now.
All three of these are mine, but I'll start with the basketball courts. As you all would recall, the basketball course was approved as part of the ARPA funds, and so once that got approved, we went on ahead. We had gotten quotes initially, so we know what those costs were. We're actually about $2,000 less than what the budget was, and so staff recommends that we accept the bids for the basketball court paving and a 8-foot tall vinyl fence enclosure to be funded by the ARPA funds.
Okay.
That was approved as part of the fiscal year budget. The only other thing I'd add to that, we did go through a bid process for this one, and the contract you see before you was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for the project. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Okay, do y'all have questions for Mr. Morrison in reference to the basketball courts?
No, I know one thing, we get enough phone calls about it.
I like
Us too. Almost daily, so we definitely want to move forward with this, and the contract is ready to go. I will say that to save money, our guys are doing the demo. So Keith Bryant and his staff are going to demo the asphalt, and that's how we're able to come in within budget. Otherwise, it would be more expensive. So our guys are going to do the demo. Just to let you all know, we're going to do it after the 4th of July. We use that blacktop for the 4th of July festivities. But after the 4th of July, immediately we will begin demo of the asphalt and then move into the concrete paving. So we're replacing the asphalt with concrete, which is more sturdy. Might not be as good on the knees, but it'll last longer. So.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion before they change their mind. Just kidding.
May I ask a question?
Sure, you may.
Is there any plans to light that basketball court?
No plans, but we could definitely ask for it in future budgets. Not only lights, but we do, Max and I discussed, we do, any opportunity we have to add cameras, we are
Yes.
requesting that in the future. When I was in Greenville, cameras really deterred crime, but it also helped us catch a whole bunch of people. So Max and I, we're looking at lighting, electrical outlets, and then also cameras, any and every place that we can add them, so that it can help us deter vandalism and just keep an eye on the park.
Right.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
is there any way we can ask the manager to come back with a price of adding cameras to the basketball court while we're doing this renovation over there, in light of the problems and the issues we've had in the past, which was one reason why the courts was closed to begin with. If it'll help the police department, Parks and Rec, I think it'd be money well spent. I don't know where we'd find it from. I can't imagine that it'd be, that much to put a couple cameras up to
So the
kind of.
good thing about cameras is they are extremely affordable now. They used to be expensive. We just got to make sure we have power and a light pole in the location.
Okay,
But
our
I think
police-
Maxie
yeah.
have already
Police
gotten
chief.
prices on
Our
the
police
cameras.
chief wants to respond also.
We can coordinate with them as well and make sure that the system that we just bought, that real-time crime center, where that would feed directly into there, so we would have live footage and we'd be able to have that, especially when we partner with Babel, we'd have access to be able to monitor that and pull a flat feed right from our system, so we can help them with that.
Now, the fence that you're putting around it, is it such that you're going to be able to gate it?
Yes,
But now, is it going to be so that they can't climb over it?
it is. Well,
I mean, I know they'll
Well,
figure out a way, but
well, if they climb this 8-foot tall fence, then they need an award because me at 50, I'm not gonna climb a 6-foot tall fence.
right.
So it's at a commercial gauge, which is at least 8 gauge.
Okay.
Very, very sturdy, and so anybody that wants to scale an 8-foot tall fence, they deserve to get into the basketball
And is
court
that
because
then going to mean that for future types of events where you've used that area, it would not be available for use?
No, and the reason why we're going to that route because we feel that by the time the basketball courts are in and established, we're going to have other venues.
areas,
Even with
okay.
the parking lot coming, we've talked about how the expanded parking lot is going to be used for events and stage and things of that nature. So we have contingency plans in place where we won't need to use the basketball courts as a venue. And let me just throw this out there. The fence is another way if there's ever an incident and the police tell people to leave, that's our way of being able to close it and
Yes.
lock it and say,
Good
it's
idea.
closed for the time being because of an incident or what have you. So that was another added measure for safety and being able to control the traffic there.
Thank you, sir, for doing a great
Mayor?
job planning this. Do we have an action?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the town manager to negotiate and enter into contracts with Chavis and Son Masonry for concrete paving and with Seegers Fence Company for an enclosure fence at the outdoor basketball courts at the municipal park.
Have a motion, have a second?
I'd like to second that,
I have a
but I have a
motion.
question first.
Okay.
Will there be a sign there where, when it's closed, it'll be a criminal offense to trespass?
That and then also there will be signs about the profanity. That was another thing. We had looked at moving into another location, but it just wasn't feasible. So I told staff that another way to enforce the profanity and conduct is to put signage that talks about profanity. The same language you have in that basketball courts indoors. We'll have it on the outside. So to answer your question, yes.
And is there a limit on how many can be inside that area? Because that was another concern that we had, was that there's a lot of people that accumulated, and because there were more people than the basketballs.
But typically, if you're not playing, you shouldn't be out
That's
there.
right.
We'll have
That's-
bleachers on the outside.
Yeah.
So if you're not part of a game, there's really no reason for you to be on the court.
Okay.
It's not going to
Right.
be big enough for, people on the sideline. It's
Okay,
just going to be
good.
big enough for play. So,
Super.
yep.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. Do we have any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed.
Mayor, before we move on,
Yes.
do we need the camera thing, does that need to be a motion? as well to
Just-
bring back a cost.
To give them direction, we have.
Right.
Okay, if you bring
Okay.
that back to our next meeting, so that we can,
With cameras, that's it.
yeah. And especially since we can tie it all together with what the police department's doing.
And lighting too. Yes.
Yeah.
yes, And
yeah,
lighting.
Yeah.
For the playground, I went a different delivery method on the construction for that. I think in several managers report, and I think we might have discussed it at previous meetings, that to take advantage of the cooperative government contracts that a lot of municipalities use, and also due to the time constraints and to save money to lock in that price, we did the piggyback contract to directly purchase the playground and have the playground installers to install it in an effort to save between 7 to 15% on construction and to lock that price in.
That's good.
So it's a totally legal delivery method where you don't have to bid it out, and that's another thing. You know, we probably would have had to bid this thing more than once, looking at the climate now. But this right here actually locks in the price of purchasing equipment at a discount and then having the certified installers to install the playground. So,
Okay.
And do we have a date when this might be done?
can't give you a schedule yet, but it'll once we give the okay for them to order it, I was just telling Commissioner Marley, that gives them permission to go ahead and in the factory to make they make these custom. But we definitely know it'll be installed by the fall. You know, maybe as early as August, as on the ground, you know, doing the install. So this right here gives them permission to go ahead and mobilize and begin to work, you know, to fabricate the equipment, order the materials. We are going rubberized safety servicing now, which is a critical path item. So it allows us to go ahead and order these things and lock the prices in,
Okay.
and then start immediately.
This is long
Yeah.
overdue.
Okay, do we have a,
Mayor,
yeah,
I just want to say, I just want to say one thing, and I'm not trying to take credit for this at all. I talked to LaMarco when I seen this on the agenda. I don't know if Mr. Seals is listening to this, but about 10 years ago, I was on the Parks and Rec committee with him, and he proposed the idea of an all-inclusive playground through the organization he has, Reed's Journey.
Reed's Journey.
And when I got elected to the board, after serving on that committee, I got elected to the board. I worked with him, and we proposed it to the board 10 years ago. And I am excited to see this.
and
It's
probably.
coming true,
yeah.
and you know, hopefully the next thing that comes is going to be that splash pad.
That's
Yeah.
next.
And but I am tickled to death. I hope Mr. Seals is listening, and this board's going to be able to give him and this
yes.
town that playground for those kids,
Absolutely.
and
And
we're
if
able
and
to
if
do
you'll
it.
know, the seed money that was raised during the matching grant with the community foundation, we had a committee that did that, and they raised that money that was just there. We actually drew the plan, so he was all a part of that too. So I think that's commendable. But it did take a long time to get here. So that's why I think as soon as we know this timeline, we need to get it out there that this is a success story that has finally happened. Do we have any other comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll
Madam
make
Mayor,
Yes.
I would just like to say a big night for Parks and Rec. And I was told when I got on this board that this is a board that, or a town that starts projects and never get anything done. So I'm just proud and happy tonight of the progress that we're making with the town overall. So again, thank you for the hard work and the work of
Mr.
Reed's
Seals.
Journey, Mrs.
Yeah.
Seals, and everyone else that has advocated for something like this for a long time. As a child, I was a child that needed to use an inclusive playground. So I'm very, it's personal to me tonight. So thank you for the hard work.
Well, let's help her make that motion then.
Okay. Make that motion.
All right. Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I make the motion that we authorize the town manager to negotiate and enter into a cooperative purchasing contract 010521-BUR with Bar Recreation for the purchase and installation of playground equipment associated with the Municipal Park Inclusive Playground for the amount not to exceed $379,935.11.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you, sir.
All right, very
Thank you.
good job.
And just follow up the schedule. The schedule can come from the contract. There's something I can hold their feet to. So that's going to be the next thing. And so at the next meeting, you'll have a construction schedule for all of these delivery methods.
And tell them that this board will be very adamant about getting that on time.
Absolutely, me too.
Yeah.
C is similar, same thing for Heritage Park. The bathroom, the site plan has already been completed and submitted, and so the bathroom was one of those. It's going to be a prefab conference station restroom. So we want to do the same thing, knowing that what the bidding climate is, and the fact that we can get the company to design it, provide the equipment, and install it. We want to go the route, same thing, piggyback contract, to purchase it and get a discount on the product by buying directly and then having the company to install it.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Did I hear something about some of that property around Heritage Park being commercial property? And if so, how's it going to affect Heritage Park?
Not that I know of. The only thing as far as
I think he's talking about, because there's that zoning sign that's currently out there.
okay, so what that zoning sign is for, let's clarify that. So that's another one of our delays for the church, because of the parking requirements. So that building has a occupancy of 96, and based on the occupancy, you're supposed to have one parking space per 4 people, which requires 26 parking spaces. And because the land adjacent to it, we can't really meet that requirement, we're going to use Heritage Park's parking, because the chapel and Heritage Park is really one park.
Right.
And so we had to go through a conditional zoning through Chancellor McLaughlin and the whole zoning board to get that approved, knowing that the land allocated for the parking is not enough. There's only enough parking to get 17 spaces. So we had to use the parking, the proposed parking at Heritage Park to get the approval. Because ultimately, to be able to open the chapel and get a CO, you're going to have to meet all those requirements.
Right.
The parking requirements and building code. So that's what that zoning sign is for.
I'd say that's for our use, saying it's not.
Right.
Right, right.
But what's people going to say when they come in and say, well, the property next door is commercial?
It is no commercial property. It's not. What he's doing is they're gonna.
Some of the,
I understand what he's talking about, but what happens if Mr. Garner wants to put a commercial business there? Right
adjacent
next
to
door.
it, or
There you go.
Chancellor, can you answer that?
Just for clarification, we are not changing the zoning at all. The current portions of the property, people don't realize they're already zoned commercial. Even though it's a chapel and it used to be the former site of the parish house, they have commercial zoning. And so what's happening is when Lamarco is trying to facilitate the resurfacing of the Patterson Street parking lot and the actual bathroom and Heritage Park, it's one property. So we came up with the idea of just adding conditional zoning to it so you can approve the entire project at one time. So the only thing we're doing is taking through a conditional zoning process where the site plan becomes the condition, but the underlying zoning remains the same. So if you go to that sign, this is back to the technology. If you go to that sign, put your camera towards the QR code, it'll take you to the staff report and packet that gives you the maps and in all the additional language.
That makes sense.
But I understand when people see
Yeah.
the case heading and it says O&I, CP to conditional zoning, it gives the appearance that we're rezoning the commercial, but we're really taking the existing zoning and adding a condition to it, which is the site plan that allows us to do all 3 projects approval at once. Otherwise, the market would have had to come in here and do a site plan approval for the bathroom, another site plan approval for Heritage Park. This approves the entire project because I think they just went and combined all of it into one parcel. So when they did that, we came up with the idea, let's go ahead and do conditional zoning. We can approve everything at once.
Okay.
And that's what that is. And that's basically it. But I want to make sure we clarify that the zoning is not changing from
All
what
right,
the
thank you.
underlying
Thank you.
existence of it is. Thanks.
Good business practice.
And this would be the comfort station down at the actual park.
Right.
All right, now, what about the bathrooms up by the chapel?
That's
I thought
coming,
they
but,
were
but that process he's talking about, that has to come before you all in July 18th, before before I'll be allowed to. They can't get their building permit until that's approved by you all July 18th. I think it goes to the planning and zoning tomorrow, and then once it goes to planning and zoning,
So
it's
this
approved.
zoning has held up what we approved for the bathrooms by the church?
The church part,
Because
but
that was supposed to have started within 45 days of the approval of that.
that triggered the delay in them getting started because they weren't able to get their building permit without the zoning permit. So it kind of delayed us a little bit. But in the interim, you know, we told the contractor if he give us a quote on paving the parking lot, he can at least get that piece finished. And by that time, you all will have gotten the conditional zoning case July 18th, which won't hold us up any further. So, but yeah, that was a delay in our process because we had to get it rezoned.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I did read this in my Parks and Rec report last month because I knew it would spark a lot of conversation, and I know it's really long, but I read through all of this in the minutes for the Parks and Rec not last meeting, because I knew it would probably cause a lot of concerns and questions, but that's why I read it, because I knew it was a lot of information that people probably needed to know.
Right. So,
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we have a motion.
Mayor, make a motion that we authorize town manager to negotiate contract number PR 11-20 with Carolina Recreation Design for the purchase and installation of a comfort station at Heritage Park for the amount not to exceed $155,096.08.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second.
Second.
Have a motion, and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed.
thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Next, we have item A under new business. That's consideration of placing a moratorium on particular types of business while working on the overlay districts, and I will turn this over to Mr. McLaughlin.
All right, one more time. At the request of the board, I put this staff report together because just the past history, there have been some uses that have come to us over the last maybe year or so that aren't uses that we are that interested in, and we came up with an idea of possibly exploring a moratorium to possibly preserve our right to be able to put some legislation together for overlays. So I wanted to give some brief history. What is a moratorium? It's defined as a halt or temporary block on new types of development and issuances of permits, often imposed while new general plan of action of zoning-based legislation amendments are completed. Local governments typically take this approach to take more immediate action to place a hold on proposed projects or to maintain the status quo while new regulations are being researched and considered. Why is it needed here? Over the past year, staff has noticed a trend of particular uses being requested that could potentially create an issue of saturation. From a perspective of economic development, certain uses signify additional uses that benefit the surrounding area. These could potentially be developed in the future. However, in some instances where there are multiple uses of the same type or uses that have negative impacts to the surrounding areas without proper systems of checks and balances, cities and towns are left open to trends that could be detrimental to positive growth. So in terms of project types, with statutory and local regulations, moratoriums are applied to all new development projects to include construction, erection, alteration, enlargement, renovation, substantial repair, movement, and any other type. The proposed uses that so what I did is I listed 5 proposed uses that I'm aware of, but if you notice in your packet, I put the entire permitted use table so that you guys could possibly identify some uses that you are aware of that we could possibly add to this. The uses that I included were motor vehicle parts and accessory sales, motor vehicle motor vehicle repair and or body work, motor vehicle rentals, motor vehicle sales, new and used and retail establishments primarily tied to smoke shops and vape establishments. Ultimately, I'm asking for a period of 6 months, but when I did my research, what I'm here tonight to tell you is I think we do have to have a public hearing to be able to do this. So if you recall, we talked about July 18th being a work session. I think the proper plan of action is to set a public hearing on the 18th. That gives the public, because I've been getting calls, trust me, but allow the general public, developers to come in and get a chance to voice their input to it. And at that time, you actually adopt the moratorium, but that probably pushes the work session back to the first hearing in August. And so just to basically make sure we're in, Dan can chime in if he sees fit, but I do know if you're doing something of this magnitude, I think a public hearing to hear from the general public would be beneficial, but it's going to be complicated to do that when we have a work session at 5 to talk about a moratorium legislation and a public hearing at 7. So I think that would push the work session to the first hearing in August,
Okay.
and then we set the public hearing for July 18th. But I'd like to open up for any questions that you have, if there's additional uses that you've identified that you want to see added to this. And again, this moratorium is simply a way for you guys to put something in place while you're trying to come up with the legislation for the overlays that preserve. Now, another thing I want to point out, any project that has been approved prior to this doesn't apply.
Right.
I think I have my interpretation too. We have a case that has been filed for one of these uses, but because that case has been filed, that may be grandfathered in as well. I'm not sure, but I wanted to highlight that because some developers are calling for projects that were recently approved and they're thinking they can't move forward with the project. So I want to make sure I let the public know tonight that any project that was already approved, that's already in, and this moratorium wouldn't apply to those particular developments. But any questions that you may have?
Questions for Mr. McLaughlin?
So we just need to make a motion to set a date for a public hearing on the 18th.
18.
And
Yeah.
then move the workshop to, we had scheduled a workshop on
For
the
the
18th, so we'd move that workshop
What's
to
the
that
first-
August
what's that
1st meeting.
Yeah.
For the first meeting in
I'll put
August.
that into a motion.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion to set a public hearing for the moratorium on July 18th at our regular board time, and also to move the scheduled workshop to August the 1st. And so-
Second.
And we have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Thank you very much.
And also, before I leave, any additional uses that you guys come up with, because what I'm going to be coming up with on the 18th is the legislation tied to the moratorium. So if there's additional uses or if there's additional feedback that you guys may think of in between now and then, just contact me and I'll add that to the discussion as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
In the form of an ordinance, the ordinance will be
Yes.
very specific about which uses are, we're putting the moratorium on and why we're doing it. So we'll need
That's exactly my point. So I'm gonna come with that legislation, but if there's other uses, because right now I just have the 5 in my staff report. If there are other uses that you identify between now and then, while I'm drafting the legislation, let me know and I'll include
Yeah,
that.
it'd be better to give it to them on the front end, otherwise the process then requires more information from the
Exactly,
public after the fact, okay?
Thanks.
Right,
Mayor,
thank you.
those
Yes.
2 dates again?
July 18th will be the public hearing for the moratorium proposal. And then our workshop that was scheduled for that evening is canceled, and it'll be a workshop on August the 1st. And that's, we had it scheduled for 6, so is 6 still good? Okay.
Thank you.
And you got that, Jane? Okay. Okay, at this time, we have consideration of our Clean Water Education Partnership, and I'll turn it over to our Stormwater Authority, Beth Brown.
Madam Mayor and Board, the reason we have this on here, so last year we just asked the mayor to sign this agreement. The town has been a member of QUEP since probably 2008. And if you look in your packet, you can see all the other towns that are members. The reason we're bringing it before you is just to kind of let you guys know that we are a member, because I'm assuming that probably most of you don't know that we're a member of QUEP, and then explain to you guys why we're a member. So we have an NPDES permit that I operate. There are 6 minimum measures in that permit, and it's about 450 pages long. Most of which is very vague, but it's the federal government's state legislated requirements on local municipalities. So basically, we don't have a stormwater department because we chose to have one or we wanted to have one. We have one because the state said we have to have one. One of the things that's in that permit is a requirement to do public education and have public involvement. And some of that we do on our own. But our QUEP membership is, you can look, it's less than $3,000 every year. It has gone up insignificantly over the years, but it depends on who's a member. Some towns are members some years and not members other years, but it meets one of our stormwater permit requirements because they do advertising, like television advertising. The only way I know to give you guys numbers as far as what we're getting for that less than $3,000 is to, when I worked for the city of Fayetteville, we made our own commercials. They were $20,000 a piece for 4 spots. So they were super expensive. Well, then they came back and told us that they didn't cover all the areas that they wanted covered, so we had to remake them. Well, it had gone up. It basically cost the city of Fayetteville $120,000 to have commercials. That was just to make the commercials. Then we had to pay for annual advertising, which was about $60,000 budgeted every year. So this, to me, is a really good deal for our town. We don't have that kind of funding, so we basically pay for this. They offer us lots of different opportunities. They usually have people come in from the outside they're like AmeriCorps students or folks that have just graduated, and they do a 1-year tenure. They work on public education projects, flyers, games, things that are all stormwater related to help out with school teachings or community, neighborhood event type things. So that's why we're a member. And another part of the permit, which actually started last year, was the fact that they wanted the mayor of all the towns that were a member to actually sign an agreement, because the state said, even though you're paying, we want a signed MOU on file. So we basically have one in the packet for the mayor to sign, and I will answer any questions you guys have about it if you have any, but this was more for your information so you kind of know what we've been doing and why we're doing it.
Anybody have any questions?
No, I don't.
Do I need to sign this one, or do we, I've already got one, okay,
Yes.
good job.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
And they list our population as 17,811. So,
Let's get the old numbers.
no, that will be a new number.
You think so?
Well, I mean, not new, that we think it's more than that, but for the past census, that's higher than the previous year we paid. All right, now we have, bringing forth the item from consent agenda, item C, which is, but would be behind tab 6, and that would be, fuel prices have continued to rise this year, and we need an additional budget amendment to cover the cost. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Holland for any questions that you may have. You want to tell them more information, or just let them ask you
see
what the reasoning was?
I mean,
Okay,
to
Commissioner.
me, it's pretty obvious why we have to do this,
Okay,
but if
I'll
y'all
ask
have a
Commissioner
specific question.
Scarola.
I just have some concerns. Hold on, let me just try to
Well,
flip
she-
to this page.
While she's looking for it, when we talked about at the budget,
No, I have notes on
we did talk about fuel costs. So this is in addition to what we projected in the budget at that time?
The fuel is tab 6.
That's next year's budget. This is the current
This
budget.
is this year's
This
current
year.
budget. Oh, okay.
This
Yeah,
is this
this-
year's
Right.
budget.
The budget
Wow.
members are doing now is for the current budget.
This is to pay for what we
So-
might
I
have.
found my notes. Okay. So I'm sorry.
Go
Madam
ahead,
Mayor.
yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I just had some questions. So I looked at what we had in the budget of how much we allotted before and now, what the increase is gonna be. Is that gonna be enough?
For next year?
Yes.
No. I can go ahead
Right.
and tell you now.
Yeah.
It's not going to be enough.
Right.
When we did the budget back
Right.
in February, March, and April,
Mhm.
Yeah.
we had it based on fuel prices at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, fuel has gone up even
Mhm.
more and more. Once it hit 469,
Yeah.
you know, that's unprecedented. Who would have thought that would have
Right.
happened? But it did.
Mhm.
You know, when we did the budget, it was in 405, 409, 419 was the highest that it got, and it only stayed there for a week, and then it dropped back down a little bit. Well, once
Right.
it hit 469, and I got the May fuel bill, we can't sustain that.
Yeah.
So once the May bill came in, and it stayed at 469 for a couple weeks, and now it's dropped down to about 442 or 443 at the Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, so this budget amendment is based on the May bill that came in. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do this, but when that bill came in and I saw how much the fuel prices were, and I took that and said, okay, if we duplicate this for June, there's no way our departments are going to have enough money to cover this.
Right.
So that's why we're getting this budget amendment. And what we'll have to do for next year, since right now that year hasn't even started yet, I'll start tracking it, and at some
Right.
point you will get a budget amendment once I see where we have some excess and some revenues or some things we can shift around. You know, it takes a few months into the budget to find out where we can have some flexibility. Then I'm certain we'll be coming back with a budget amendment sometime in the next several months for next year's budget.
I was thinking you was being proactive and already start working on that.
But at the time we did the budget, it was based on those fuel
You're paying for
prices.
June, did you? You're still in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of my concerns, like, because, you know, just for code enforcement, a $100 increase, I mean, that's one tank of gas. I mean,
Right. Some
so-
departments use a lot more than others.
Right.
So I only, as you can see, I only put in here what I think we're going to
Right.
actually have to use.
Based on their
So
consumption
that's
usage.
why, you know, if you see majority of it's police, because that's their
Oh,
office.
yes.
They're out
Mhm.
there
That makes sense.
all day long in their vehicles. So
Okay.
Wow.
plus code enforcement, there's only 2 vehicles.
Yeah.
They go out, you know, they stay in town, they stop, they do their code enforcement, they get back in their vehicles.
Mhm.
It's different than 35 police cars driving around
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty.
So do we have a
Motion to approve amendment, budget amendment number 30.
Can I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Next, we have from the consent agenda, we have the items behind tab 7, which is funds to cover contract for U.S. ISS agency in the amount of $55,000. And I'll turn that, I guess Commissioner Scroller requested, so we'll ask her to ask Mr. Holland whatever questions you need.
What does this exactly
Into,
cover?
yeah.
Because it doesn't really give us a description.
Right, the contract with US, it's hard to say, US ISS agency is a contract that we had for some personnel issues. If you have specific questions, you may have to ask the manager or the town attorney.
Okay.
The personnel investigation.
Okay.
Originally, it was not budgeted in the budget, so I had to wait until I knew where there'd be some revenues, and had to wait until the invoice actually came in, so I knew the amount.
So this is from past, and this is
Yes.
going, okay, all right. Contract.
So do I have a motion? Any other questions, though? Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve budget amendment number 31.
Have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Seeing none opposed. Next.
I was opposed.
Oh, I'm sorry. 4 to 1. I missed it. So 4 to 1. All right, next we have our manager's report. Are there any additions to that report? Are there any questions in reference to that report? Anybody have anything? I'll
Okay,
give you a
so-
second.
Let me see if I put a note on it, just make sure.
I did have a question. It was concern, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Okay.
It was a concern of the citizens with the pesticide truck running stop signs. So I don't know if that needs to be addressed. I mean, they're doing a good job. I don't have mosquitoes, but if maybe they can just watch it in the neighborhoods, that'd be great.
You said pest or animal control?
Pest,
Mosquito,
Okay.
pesticides.
mosquito
I would
spray.
acknowledge that as, I'm not sure if they have a yellow flashing light, and I know we don't do snow operations in this state much.
Mhm.
Emergency vehicles with their emergency lights running are actually exempt from the stop. They have to proceed with caution. They're not mandated to stop at the stop signs if they have the lights going.
Okay.
So they usually proceed through, and I'm sure citizens are like, oh no, look, it didn't stop all the way or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, once he starts spraying, he just keeps it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like snow plowing, you don't usually stop at every single stop sign in operations with the emergency lights running. They still have to drive cautiously and within speed limits and all that.
I do have a question about pest
Okay.
control now. Does the mist come out every so many feet or distance, or is it a continuous blow? Because, well, now, I can assure you that I did not see a continuous blow unless he ran out when he rolled down in front of my house. You know, I was trying to figure out what was he blowing. I just heard a sound. Didn't see nothing come out.
Maybe you got on the end of the route.
Hey, no matter what I was on, I didn't see it. And if we paying for it, we should be getting it. And I'm gonna tell you, I didn't even smell anything. You know, seriously. So we're paying for something we're not receiving.
I
So,
wouldn't try to smell it.
huh?
I wouldn't
Yeah,
try
I
to
trust
sm-
me.
I mean-
I'm old field chemical guy, so smell the stuff I have. Yeah.
It's our own truck too. So it's our own truck.
Okay, it's on truck way.
Yeah,
All right.
we
I
are
need my-
paying for it, but it's
Right.
not like we're an outside
Oh,
source.
we're not outsourcing.
Right.
Okay. And one other thing, your animal control guy. Now I have seen him come through the neighborhood and just disregard the speed bumps and go blue, blue. Whoa. Oh man, he needs to slow down a little bit. We have more kids out in there and are riding bikes. That's
Okay.
it.
Anything else? Anything from his report that you have questions about? None? All righty. Of course, we have our regular reminders listed, and after that, staff comments. Do we have any comments this evening? No staff comments? Staff comments? None? All righty.
I had one thing,
All right.
Madam Mayor.
Okay.
For everyone's not general knowledge, the amateur radio field day is this coming weekend, and they'll be at the golf course, the old golf course. So check it out.
Okay.
And
All righty then.
Madam
All right.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
When will we get a update on things that are coming in the future? This doesn't cover all of them. For instance, what time we have to be at the parade route, what's the drop off
Yes.
and everything, you know, where we have to be and the pickup.
You'll get an update from staff and email.
Okay.
I honestly don't know what time that is, but I'll find out.
And unless I missed it, also, I don't even see anything mentioned about the 4th of July parade coming up in July. And I mean, it's fastly approaching. It need to be on our marquee that we have in the town so people can begin to see that and know that it's on the 2nd and not the 4th.
LaMarco's already got, I know that they've got some information out,
before.
and I've seen the flyer, but we probably do need to make sure that it's in other locations. And the parade starts at 4, so that's, and see, what'll happen is, our next meeting isn't until afterwards, so we probably need,
Yes.
and I do know that we got a memo from Parks and Rec in reference to the parade, and about the commissioners being, allowed to stop at the lake and to view the parade as it went by, so that you'd have an opportunity to be at the beginning of the parade, stop at the lake, and then after the parade you'd be transported back to wherever your vehicle was. And but I don't recall exactly. I think it seems like, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 that they wanted to start you to be at we'll get the information.
Yeah, it used to be, yeah.
Okay. Anything
And also
else?
let them know there are no vendors at the 4th of July event. Some people are the vendors this year. They keep thinking the old way we did things, and we used to have vendors out there. But let them, you know, I told some that there's no vendors this year. Am I correct? He's gone. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
To set up a table selling water and popcorn,
Mm-hmm.
and giving them instructions on how to do the permit
Mm-hmm.
to get that done. That's the only thing I'm aware of.
Okay.
What about vendors up here at the park?
That's what I'm saying, yes.
I believe there are. There's vendors up here at the park. Yep. Yeah. So we need to
Yes,
probably get some more information out so that we have.
There is gonna be a dirt bag ale set up here.
I know there's food trucks.
Because I did permits, special
Yeah.
permits
Mm-hmm.
for them.
That's a special one.
There's gonna be food trucks, and there'll be some things going on up here at the park. It's not gonna be along the parade route
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
the lake.
Ma'am, I'd like to
Yes.
commend Commissioner Scarola for her effort to furnish vehicles for the board to ride in. And I still request that we wear,
I'm wearing a
Slippery.
Hawaiian shirt. I'm sorry, Commissioner Legg. I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt that has Jeep Wranglers on it.
oh, then I may not wear a shirt.
And I will ensure that everyone will have access to a step stool to get into the lifted Jeeps. So, yes.
Please.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm looking out for everyone, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think everyone, and I will tell you the comment that was made about this with having Jeeps, is that a Jeep is considered a family vehicle now. That there's a lot, like the Jeep Club, but they're still considered a family vehicle, and how appropriate to use that, especially with this, everything opening back up after COVID. It was just a good opportunity, so I'm glad. I'm sorry mine's not gonna be pink. The Mayor Pro Tem got the pink one, but I'll take my purple one and be happy. Any other things for the good of the board or the community? If not, do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. We'll see you all at, I guess the next time will be either Saturday or we'll see you at the parade. And July 18th is our next meeting, July 18th. There will not be one due to the 4th of July falling.
All right, we get a long break. I like
Yep.
that.